So as external storage becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and faster, the storage wars are really heating up. And I have been looking for a long time for the perfect solution. And I think this SanDisk 8TB SSD drive is it. This little black and red monster is an absolute beast. It's so fast, so large, and so quiet that it doesn't make sense not to have this drive. This is the perfect add-on if you've gone all blazes out specs on a high-duty machine, but you maybe save some on the hard drive space. This is actually bigger and better than a lot of the hard drives that you could put straight onto your motherboard. Let's talk a little bit about this drive, what makes it so great, and why I think this is the best value out there in terms of external storage. You can see in the back here a very small power plug. This is externally powered, so that's one thing to keep in mind, and a USB-C compatible outlet here. So one thing that was really important to me was to get the USB-C and not some of the other tech that's out there with USB-A. This is USB 3.2 Gen 2 capable, which means that you can do speeds up to 1000 megabits per second in terms of transfer rate, and I'll show you guys the test a little later. It hits it no problem, actually exceeds a little bit. I've actually got 2 different games running right now, and I'll show you guys that in a little bit, and they are installed on this drive, and you can hear there's not a peep coming from this thing. It is so quiet. Some of the other external drives that I've had are chugga 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 chugga, thinking as they're processing, trying to keep up, and they struggle. So let's take a look here. You guys can see that I've got 2 different games running, no problems. These are kind of little idle or clicker games just running in the background. I'll show you guys a little more specs later, but it's running these, no problems, no lag whatsoever, no crashes, and again, not a sound from the hard drive. You wouldn't even know it's there. So Crystal Disk Mark, the app that you see here, is pretty much the standard for testing read-write speed on drives, and it's exceptionally useful when you're comparing different external drives to see what your actual read-write speed is going to be, and they run a bunch of different tests to give you that. So we're going to run it here on the E drive, which is the external drive. You can see it's already about 40% full, so let's run some of these tests and see how this one performs. So we're just about done with the test here. I wanted to show you guys, you can still see we're still on the E drive here, about 40% full, just so you know I'm not swapping drives, swapping test results. Over 1000 megs per second, full gig per second on the read-write test. Exactly as you would expect based on the specs, but you never know when you get some of these drives in the mail how they actually perform. You can see we're exceeding the stated performance here, which is amazing, and it's still whisper quiet on this drive. Not a peep, not hot, nothing. This thing is running fantastic without a hitch, exactly as you would expect on the specs. Let's talk about real world application here. So this is what most people really care about versus the test. How does this perform when I'm doing things on my computer? So one thing that I like to test with is this folder here, this GitHub folder. This is 10 gigs and over 45,000 files. So it gives you a good idea of what a lot of files would look like, as well as a decent amount of size. So I'm taking a 10 gig folder and I'm going to drag that to my desktop here. And I'm going to start a stopwatch over here so you guys can see it, just to see the real time. Since I'm going to skip a lot of the transfer bits, I'm going to run this concurrently and you can see how long it's actually going to take. So I'm going to drop it over here. So the initial time, let's go ahead and start this. It's telling me about an hour and 50 minutes. That's nowhere close to correct. It's going to drop significantly pretty quickly. So we're checking in about a minute into it, and it's already saying only 10 minutes left instead of 2 hours. So what you're seeing here is the speed go up and down a lot as we're dealing with a lot of these very small files, and then you get to some of the bigger ones where it's super fast, right? So look at the speed gauge going up and down here. So that's what you might expect when you're dealing with a folder of this type that is both very large and has a lot of different files. So it gives you kind of an idea of what to expect from a speed range. And now we're done. 2.5 minutes in for a 10 gig folder with over 45,000 files. Again, this might be a little different if you're just doing one file that's really large. So let's try it with just a single file here. So you might be able to see that this is one MP4 file that's almost 3 gigs. So let's move that over and see what the time is on that. And we're done. So 3 seconds. So obviously, long amount of time on the GitHub folder was the 45,000 files and not so much the size. So there you can see a 3 gig movie moved over to the desktop in a little under 3 seconds. Actually, I'm a little slow on my click here. So that's pretty amazing, and again, why this drive operates so well.